Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Get ready for heart-touching stories. Don't forget to subscribe and let's begin.
The Uninvited Father Part 1. The invitation that never came. Marcus Whitmore stood in the marble foyer of his Bel Air estate, the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the manicured gardens below. At 63, he had everything a man could want. A $6.2 million home perched in the hills, a successful career in real estate development, and enough wealth to last 3 lifetimes. Everything, that is, except what he wanted most on this particular Saturday morning, an invitation to his son's wedding. The thick cream-colored envelope had arrived 3 months ago, addressed only to Mr. Marcus Whitmore. No and guest. No acknowledgement of Patricia, his wife of 5 years. When he'd called his son Daniel to discuss it, the conversation had been brief and brutal. "Dad, I'm sorry, but Melissa and I have decided to keep the wedding small and intimate. Just close family and friends. I am your father, Daniel. How much closer can family get?" There had been a long pause on the other end of the line. Marcus could hear muffled voices, Daniel conferring with his fiancée, no doubt. "Look, Dad, after everything that happened with Mom, Melissa's family has concerns, and honestly, so do I. We think it's better if you sit this one out." "This one out? It's not a baseball game, son. It's your wedding. My decision is final. I'm sorry." Line had gone dead. Marcus had stared at his phone for a long time that day, trying to understand how he'd arrived at this moment. His mind drifted back through the years. The divorce from Daniel's mother Catherine 7 years ago, the messy settlement, the accusations and counter-accusations that had spilled into the public record. Catherine had painted him as a workaholic who'd chosen his business over his family. He'd called her controlling and unreasonable. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in the mudded middle. But Daniel had taken his mother's side. Of course he had. Catherine had been the one who'd attended every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference, every school play while Marcus was busy building his empire. Marcus had thought he was providing for his family, giving them the best life possible. Instead, he'd given them his absence. The reconciliation attempts over the past 7 years had been sporadic and painful. Dinners that ended in arguments. Text messages left on read. Birthday gifts acknowledged with curt thank you notes. And now this, the ultimate rejection, part 2, the decision. Patricia found him still standing in the foyer an hour later, lost in thought. "Brooding again," she said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. At 48, she was 15 years his junior, a fact that hadn't helped his relationship with Daniel. She was kind and patient, everything Catherine hadn't been in their final years together, but Daniel saw her only as the woman who'd replaced his mother. "Thinking," Marcus corrected, "about Daniel's wedding? It's today. Right now he's probably getting ready, adjusting his bow tie, nervous about his vows." Marcus turned to face his wife. "And I'm not there." Patricia had heard this lament many times over the past weeks. She'd offered comfort, suggested therapy, even proposed that Marcus reach out one more time to Daniel to try to mend fences. But Marcus was proud, and pride was a wall that even love struggled to scale. "You know what?" Marcus said suddenly, an idea crystallizing in his mind. "If I'm not invited to celebrate my son's happiness, then I'll celebrate anyway. Here, my way." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm going to throw a party. Today, right now. I'm going to invite everyone I know, fill this house with people, and show Daniel that his rejection doesn't break me." "Marcus, that's petty, vindictive, maybe, but I need to do something." "Patricia, I can't just sit here alone, imagining my son getting married without me. I'll lose my mind." Patricia studied her husband's face, seeing the pain beneath the bravado. "Okay," she said finally. "Then let's throw a party." 3. The gathering. Marcus Whitmore knew how to make things happen quickly. Within 3 hours, he made dozens of phone calls. Business associates, neighbors, country club friends, Patricia's family, his brother Robert and his family, anyone who could arrive on short notice received an invitation to an impromptu celebration of life at the Whitmore estate. He hired a catering company that owed him a favor to bring food and servers. He had his assistant arrange for a bartender and a jazz trio. He opened his wine cellar, an extensive collection worth more than most people's homes, and selected bottles that would have made any sommelier weep with joy. By 4 o'clock, the first guests began to arrive. Robert Whitmore came early, pulling his brother aside as soon as he entered. "Are you sure about this, Marcus? This seems like a pretty extreme reaction." "What would you have me do? Sit in the dark and feel sorry for myself? Maybe reach out to Daniel one more time?" "Try to." He made his choice, Rob. "I'm making mine," Robert sighed. He was younger by 3 years, happily married for 30 years with 3 grown children who all adored him. He never understood Marcus's complicated relationship with Daniel, though he tried to mediate between them several times over the years. "Just don't do anything you'll regret," Robert said. "Too late for that," Marcus replied. "I already have a son who doesn't want me at his wedding." How much worse can it get? By 6 o'clock, 32 people filled the Whitmore estate. The jazz trio played softly on the terrace. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the party had the veneer of elegance and sophistication, but Marcus felt hollow. Part 4, the toast. He stood on the terrace, surrounded by people who'd come because he'd asked them to, or because they were curious, or because they never turned down an invitation to a party at a multimillion-dollar estate. But none of them were Daniel. Marcus tapped his champagne glass with a knife and the conversations died down. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, he began. I know this is unusual, throwing a party with just a few hours' warning, but I wanted to be surrounded by people today. You see, today my son is getting married. A confused murmur ran through the crowd. If his son was getting married, why was Marcus here and not there? Some of you may be wondering why I'm not at the wedding, Marcus continued. The simple answer is that I wasn't invited. My son and I have had our differences over the years, and he's decided that those differences are significant enough that he doesn't want me present on one of the most important days of his life. Patricia stepped closer to him, a concerned look on her face. Marcus, she began, but he gently shook his head. I could be bitter about this, Marcus said. I could focus on the rejection, the hurt, the feeling that I've failed as a father, and believe me, I feel all of those things. But tonight I choose to do something different. Tonight I choose to celebrate anyway. He raised his glass higher. I'm celebrating the fact that my son found someone he loves enough to marry. I'm celebrating the fact that he's grown into a man who makes his own decisions even when those decisions exclude me. I'm celebrating the life he's building, even though I'm not part of it. And I'm celebrating all of you, the people who did show up when I asked, the relationships I do have, the life I've built. Crowd stood in uncomfortable silence. This wasn't the light-hearted party they'd expected. So here's to Daniel, Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly. May your marriage be filled with joy, may you learn from my mistakes, and may you be a better father than I was. And here's to all of us, may we never take our relationships for granted, may we always show up when it matters, and may we be brave enough to celebrate life even when it breaks our hearts. He drank deeply from his glass and after a moment the others followed suit. Part 5. The evening unfolds. As the evening progressed, the party took on a strange, dreamlike quality. The jazz trio played classics: Cole Porter, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday. People ate and drank and made conversation, but there was an underlying current of sadness that no amount of champagne could wash away. Marcus found himself telling stories about Daniel to anyone who would listen. Daniel as a toddler taking his first steps in the backyard of their old house in Pasadena. Daniel at 10 winning his first soccer trophy. Daniel at 16 getting his driver's license and immediately backing into a mailbox. He was so embarrassed, Marcus said to a colleague from the firm, laughing at the memory. But I told him everyone makes mistakes, that's how we learn. Irony wasn't lost on him. If everyone learned from their mistakes, why hadn't he learned to be a better father? Robert found him again around 8 o'clock, standing alone by the infinity pool looking out over the city lights below. Hell of a party, Robert said. Hell of a day, Marcus replied. You know, when Catherine called me last week, she asked if I thought you'd show up at the wedding anyway. Marcus turned sharply. Catherine called you, she's worried about you. In her own way, she still cares. She has a funny way of showing it. She's the one who turned Daniel against me. Or did you do that all by yourself? Marcus bristled. What's that supposed to mean? It means that you can't blame everyone else forever, Marcus. Yes, Catherine poisoned the well. Yes, she made things harder than they needed to be. But you gave her plenty of ammunition. How many of Daniel's birthdays did you miss? How many school events? I was building a business. I was providing for my family. You were hiding from your family, Robert said quietly. Work was easier than dealing with Catherine's unhappiness, so you buried yourself in it, and Daniel noticed. Kids always notice. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but beneath it was something worse, the terrible suspicion that his brother was right. Part 6. The unexpected guest. At 9:30, just as the party was beginning to wind down, a car pulled up the long driveway. Marcus watched from the terrace as a figure emerged, silhouetted against the headlights. Patricia appeared at his elbow. Marcus, is that Daniel? Marcus breathed. His son walked up the stone steps to the terrace, still wearing his wedding suit, a perfectly tailored navy blue with a white rose boutonniere. He looked handsome and grown up, and somehow still like the little boy who used to fall asleep in Marcus's lap during Sunday football games. The remaining guests fell silent as Daniel approached his father. How did you? Marcus began. Uncle Rob texted me, Daniel said. Told me what you were doing, what you said in your toast. He looked around at the assembled guests, the elegant setup, the celebration his father had orchestrated. This is quite the party. You should be at your reception, Marcus said. I was, but Melissa said I should come here, that I'd regret it if I didn't. Wife sounds like a wise woman. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Can we talk alone? Marcus nodded, and they walked together toward the edge of the property, away from the curious eyes of the guests. Part 7. The conversation. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They stood side by side, looking out over the city the same way they used to stand together in the backyard of the old house, Marcus pointing out constellations to his son. I'm sorry, Daniel said finally, for not inviting you, for shutting you out. You had your reasons. I do. Mom made me promise years ago that if I ever got married, I wouldn't let you ruin it the way you ruined our family. The words stung, but Marcus forced himself to listen. But standing at the altar today, saying my vows, I realized something. I don't want to start my marriage carrying all this anger, all this resentment. It's too heavy, and it's not fair to Melissa. She must be something special, Marcus said. She is. She's patient and kind, and she actually likes her parents. Daniel laughed bitterly. Imagine that. Can imagine it. I'm glad you found someone like that. They fell silent again. A cool breeze stirred the palm trees around them. I wasn't a good father, Marcus said. I know that. I told myself I was providing for you, giving you opportunities, but really I was just absent. And when your mother and I split, instead of fighting to maintain a relationship with you, I let pride and hurt feelings get in the way. I'm sorry, Daniel, I'm so sorry." Daniel's eyes glistened with tears. "Why couldn't you have said that 7 years ago? Why did it take being excluded from my wedding? Because I'm stubborn and foolish and it takes me too long to see what's right in front of me. I'm still learning, still making mistakes. Like throwing a party on the same day as my wedding. Yes, like that, though in my defense it was supposed to be a distraction, a way to survive the day without falling apart." Daniel looked back toward the house where the guests were pretending not to watch them. "Uncle Rob said you gave a toast about celebrating my happiness even though you weren't part of it. I meant it. I know you did, I can hear it in your voice." Daniel wiped his eyes. "I'm still angry at you, Dad, for missing so much, for choosing work over me, for the divorce and the way you treated Mom. You have every right to be angry." Melissa helped me see something. She said that anger is just going to eat me up inside unless I find a way to let it go, not all at once, not forget what happened, but start to forgive. Start to move forward. Marcus felt his own tears threatening to spill over. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but I'm going to try to give it anyway. Not for you, for me, for my marriage, for the family Melissa and I might have someday." Daniel turned to face his father directly. "I don't want to be the kind of father you were, Dad. I want to be better, but I also don't want to be so consumed by anger at you that I can't be present for my own kids." "You'll be a wonderful father," Marcus said. "You already understand what I didn't, that showing up matters more than anything else." They stood in silence for another moment, the weight of years of hurt and misunderstanding hanging between them. "I should get back to the reception," Daniel said finally. "Melissa's probably worried. Of course, tell her congratulations from me and thank you for coming here, for giving me the chance to apologize." Daniel nodded. Then, impulsively, he stepped forward and hugged his father. Marcus wrapped his arms around his son, breathing in the moment, knowing it might be a long time before he got another one. "Maybe," Daniel said as he pulled away, "maybe you and Patricia could come to dinner sometime. In a few weeks when we get back from our honeymoon, nothing big, just the four of us." Marcus's heart leaped. "We'd like that very much." "Then I'll call you. Answer, I promise." Daniel smiled, a real smile, the first Marcus had seen in years, and then he was walking back to his car, back to his wife, back to his new life. Part 8. The aftermath. Marcus returned to the terrace where his guests waited. Patricia rushed to him immediately. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," Marcus said. "He came, he talked to me, and there's a chance, just a chance, that we might find our way back to each other." Party continued for another hour, but the mood had shifted. People could sense that something significant had happened, that the evening had transformed from a sad defiance into something more hopeful. As the last guest departed and the caterers cleaned up, Marcus and Patricia sat together on the terrace, wrapped in blankets against the cool night air. "Thank you," Marcus said to his wife, "for supporting this crazy idea, for being patient with me." "That's what love is," Patricia replied, "showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Marcus thought about that, showing up. It sounded so simple, but he'd spent most of his life finding excuses not to do it, not to be present, not to be vulnerable, not to risk getting hurt. But Daniel had shown up tonight. Despite the anger and the hurt, despite having every reason to stay away, his son had shown up. And in doing so, he'd given Marcus the greatest wedding gift he could have asked for: a second chance. Epilogue. 3 weeks later, Marcus and Patricia sat in Daniel and Melissa's small apartment in Silver Lake, eating takeout Chinese food and making awkward conversation. It wasn't perfect. There were long pauses and careful navigation around sensitive topics, but it was a start. Melissa told them about the wedding, showing them photos on her phone. Daniel looked happy in every picture, surrounded by people who loved him. Marcus felt the familiar pang of having missed it, but this time he didn't let the feeling consume him. "These are beautiful," he said, handing the phone back. "I'm glad you had such a wonderful day." "Did," Melissa said. She glanced at Daniel, then continued. "Actually, the photographer gave us all the files. If you wanted, we could have some prints made for you, so you could have them even though you weren't there." Marcus looked at his son, who nodded slightly. "I'd like that very much," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. They talked late into the evening, sharing stories and tentatively rebuilding the bridge that had been burned so long ago. Marcus knew it would take time. Wounds this deep didn't heal overnight, but for the first time in years he felt hope. As he and Patricia drove home that night, winding through the hills back to their estate, Marcus thought about the party he'd thrown, the 32 guests, the champagne, the desperate attempt to fill the void his son's absence had created. It had been petty and vindictive and born of pain, but it had also been a turning point. Sometimes, Marcus reflected, you had to celebrate alone to remember what you were really celebrating, and sometimes you had to lose an invitation to understand the value of showing up. His phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Thanks for coming tonight, Dad. Let's do it again soon." Marcus smiled in the darkness of the car and typed back, "Anytime, I'll be there." And this time he meant it.